I've now been happily designing for 3 years, but my first few months as a junior UX designer wasn't the easiest. And I'll tell you why. Also, before we start, I think you know what I'm about to say next. These opinions are 100% my own. So per usual, for the sake of my mental health and the longevity of this channel, please don't come at me, bro. So what I'm about to disclose about UX bootcamps has nothing to do with getting a job, learning tools, or wireframing. It's not even about sharing your design work or having the best portfolio. But it affects way more of your life as a junior UX designer and maybe even beyond. And also feeling a little shook by the amount of money that you paid for this bootcamp. And that's the fact that the bootcamp doesn't teach you what it's really like to be a UX designer in real life. And I like to call this real world readiness. I feel like when people first set out to go to a bootcamp, they're thinking like, well, how do I get the actual job? How do I make 6 figures? I just need to get into UX right away. But it's so easy to forget about all the successes after you get the job in UX design. And don't you worry, because I'm a victim to this 100%. I don't know why, I always try and put whipped cream in my coffee because I'm like, oh, that will be so fun. And then it like curdles and it's like looking real nasty. I think when I wanted to get out of my previous career so badly, I was like, I just need to get to that UX design job. I was very short-sighted and I wasn't thinking about the long game here. But eventually that all came around and kicked me in my little tush because that first night before my first UX design job, I was having the worst imposter syndrome. And one of the reasons for this mental state is because the bootcamp that I took, and I know a few others that also don't do this, they don't have you working with real life stakeholders like product managers and engineers. Camps can only do so much to simulate real life where you have to defend your design decisions at the sake of real life users, real people that are impacted by the decisions that you make. There's also a huge social aspect of being a UX designer that no one really talks about. And I remember one of my very first presentations that I had to do when I was a UX design intern, presenting wireframes to clients. And I never was really told that clients actually don't really care about wireframes. They really just want to talk about the colors, the font, the images. I just wasn't really prepared. And so I didn't know how to navigate that conversation and make sure our clients focus on the more UX aspects of the design rather than more of the visual aspects. And I think the worst part of it was that the entire company, or I feel like at least the entire company, maybe I'm being dramatic, was looking to me for advice, was looking to me because I am the UX person. I should be the UX expert, right? The spotlight effect where it feels like everyone's relying on you for UX advice might be more familiar to those who have had a UX design job where you're the only UX designer at your company. But it still applies. This feeling of like, am I doing the right thing? Am I actually a UX designer? Am I a fraud, and when are they gonna sniff me out and fire me? I think if the bootcamp maybe gave me more of those fundamentals of how to socially navigate the politics of being a UX designer, I would have felt a little bit more mentally prepared for my first day. Okay, but listen to this because this is so important. It's not the bootcamp's fault. If you think about the business model, the main proposition for these UX bootcamps is to get you that UX design job, despite the experience or lack of experience that you may have in UX design. So once that box is checked and you sign an offer letter, they've done what they've told you they're going to do, and the service is sold, and you both walk away happily. And once you start your first UX design job and you're getting those jitters and a few months in you really feel like you have no idea what you're doing, they don't owe you anything. Ugh, I know you're like, Mimi, you're so harsh. But I do have some good news for you because if you're watching this right now and you're about to enroll in DesignLab's UX Academy, or you're already enrolled, you can get ahead of this. So here's some tips that you could try in order to prep yourself better for this real world readiness. First one is researching other roles that work with UX. This is something I wish I did, but I didn't. I wish I went on LinkedIn and just searched product managers, engineers, marketing, copywriters, anyone in my LinkedIn bubble that I could potentially message and ask them about what it's like working with a UX designer. To take it a step further, if you're already kind of in a tech environment where you have access to product managers, even project managers, account managers, sorry, burping. I just ate breakfast. Okay. If you need a more specific list for these roles, I'm gonna link 2 of my videos, which is what I do as a UX designer and what I do as a product designer. I'll also have them in my descriptions below. It's really kind of like user research, where you're trying to figure out what kind of goals and needs and pain points there are for each of these types of people that you will be eventually working with. The more you know, the less confused you'll be on that first day, and the more you know, you'll feel more confident going into these types of environments and working really closely with these types of roles. Second tip is trying to learn more about the stories and experiences of real life UX designers. I'll list a few resources in my descriptions below that I like to listen, watch, and read during my free time to better understand what other UX designers are doing, what kind of problems they're solving, what kind of challenges they're having. Honestly, you're kind of already taking that first step there because you're already here on my channel and I already have a bunch of day in the lives that I'll link here. And this last tip is probably the most important one, but incredibly overlooked. And that is thinking about your next 3 years as a UX designer. When I was in boot camp, I was just thinking about the next 8 months. How am I gonna get that job offer? I totally understand how overwhelming it can be to have to go through a boot camp and then juggle your entire life and also have to think ahead. But I promise you, thinking ahead and planning just a little bit for your future will really save you some time in the long run, where you won't have to be agonizing and experiencing that awful imposter syndrome anxiety. I can't guarantee it will never happen, and I will never promise that imposter syndrome will never happen, but thinking ahead and trying to figure out where you want to go as a UX designer outside of bootcamp will really make you feel a lot more confident about your future. So before you start your bootcamp, or even before you enroll in your bootcamp, make sure you research and learn about all the different types of UX careers that are out there. And who knows, after a year of being a junior UX designer, you might start shifting and you might start learning that you like other aspects of UX design, and that's okay. I'm not telling you that you have to marry yourself to a certain UX position before you even enroll in a bootcamp, but I'm telling you it's really good to start learning all of this terminology and understanding where UX fits in a company. It will just ease your mind so much more before your first day as a UX designer. Make sure you subscribe to this channel for more content just like this one. I'm going to go take my midday nap or maybe hang out with Morty.